Hello and welcome to the club room. This is a little impromptu video. It's Saturday morning, about 11 o'clock. I got back from Paris last night, back home around about 8 o'clock. And even though I started travelling at 10 a.m. UK time on Friday, 11 o'clock Paris time, and was only actually in transit for 2 hours, an hour on a plane and an hour on a bus back from the airport. There was like altogether it was 10 hours. It was 8 hours waiting around, delayed flights, buses that didn't turn up, all that nonsense. I'm absolutely wrecked, as you can see from the eye bags. But anyway, a book haul. So you will have seen on the main body of the channel that I did a little feature about Eric Brown, who I do like. I've read quite a lot recently. He's comfort reading, he's easy, and I've enjoyed his work of late because I've just been so wrecked and so difficult with getting stuff prepared, and too much going on in life, too much going on. So I have been steadily buying some more. So I'll show you a couple more I bought, and I'm going to show you the books I got in Paris. I'm not going to show these on the main part of the channel. I'm just going to show you guys. So I didn't get a lot, but it's special stuff. So this is an exclusive for you. So first of all, the Eric Brown books. This is Necropath, which is one of the Bengal Station series. There's one before this called Bengal Station, and this is a little A format paperback, and there are 3 of these, and they're still just about available. I need to pick them up. Yeah, I just like Eric. It's mind candy, like I say, but it's got a very alien type cover. And Bengal Station is a spaceport which is located in the Indian Ocean, so it's that sort of thing, and I think there's all sorts of alien sort of incursions and what have you, so that's real sort of generic sci-fi, as the great Wash call it, or skiffy as I like to refer to it. I also got this Eric Brown, which is a trade paperback, and I hate trade paperbacks. It's my loathing for trade paperbacks, with a few exceptions, is almost as great as my loathing for CDs which come in digipacks. I hate digipacks. I really, really, really hate them. But you can't always tell format when you're buying online. And this is Binary System, which, as you see, is that's like a size of a royal, and is Solaris. And Binary System is, I think it's 2 different novellas. One called Binary, one called System, I think. Or is it? Maybe it's not. So there we go. I don't know anything about it. I haven't even looked at it. It's the first time I've looked at it. But it looks print on demand. But there you go. So a bit more Eric for me. So I'm my Eric thing. But just before I went to Paris, I was reading this Eric Brown, Kings of Eternity, which I think I've already shown that. This is excellent. This is the best book I've read by him. He is never going to be D.G. Compton or Christopher Priest or J.G. Ballard or Barry M. Malzberg. But this is really good. I think this is probably the best written thing I've read by him since I read A Writer's Life, which was the first thing, not the first thing I read, but the first thing I'd read by him for a long time, because I read his early stories, as I said in the other video. And I really recommend this. This cover is relevant. But this proves he could have written mainstream novels, and there's a lot of mainstream elements of this. It's got all the usual Brown things in it, but I am going to do a review in my reviews roundup coming on the main part of the channel that comes. But I would say if you just want to buy one of Eric's books, get this one. It's really good, and it did remind me a bit of The Prestige to begin with. It's got a lot of the tropes that you would expect from him, but it's more like a mainstream novel, and I think it's really excellent, really warm-hearted, great book, and very exciting. I really enjoyed this. Fantastic stuff. And it took him on and off 10 years to write, and it does show. And I think somebody commented in the main body of the channel saying that they felt that if he'd written fewer books, they'd been better. But yeah, that's always the case. A lot of genre writers, they have to do a lot of work to pay the bills. But yeah, Kings of Eternity, that comes to the top recommendation. So, what did I get in Paris? Well, I wasn't intending to buy anything because, as you know, I'm not on a collecting jag at the moment. I'm trying to cut back. But when I saw Mike Moorcock, he gave me a couple of things. And one was expected because we've been emailing a lot, and the other one wasn't. And this is the one which wasn't. And this is Ian Sinclair, Agents of Oblivion. And this is the paperback from the Swan River Press, who do lots of weird fiction and horror and things. So I'll just stick it further in the camera. Quite nice, that. And Mike gave me this, and inside it's actually inscribed. This is an associational copy. This is inscribed to Mike from Ian Sinclair. So Mike gave me this for my collection. I do like Ian Sinclair. I like some of the stuff more than others, but I respect him enormously. I'm a big fan of Whitechapel Scarlet Tracings, which I read when it first came out. I had the hardcover first. I got him to sign it for me. I had to sell it in the 90s when I was short of money. And I reread it in Penguin a couple of years ago. Great book. And I'll talk about that in more length at some point on the channel. And it says, for Mike, with thanks yet again for promo words, wind in the sails, down the Moonbeam Sea Roads. The Moonbeam Roads, of course, refers to the Elric trilogy, which doesn't quite fit in with the rest. The last Elric trilogy doesn't sort of intersect with the rest of things, and I'll talk about that sometimes. But this is this is a hardcover limited edition of this, and this is 4 stories about Algernon Blackwood, Arthur Machen, J.G. Ballard, and H.P. Lovecraft. So this is going to be interesting, and there's a reference to Antonin Artaud on this, or Artaud as we say in England. And funnily enough, I was looking at some of Artaud's paintings in the Pompidou Centre, and I didn't know he did paintings. He hit this crisis in 1968 in Paris when the riots were on, and he had this big mental crisis, and he decided not to do sort of writing, which was his thing. Automatic writing, the theatre of the absurd, that sort of thing, and he decided to do paintings instead. They were quite good, actually, so I was really pleased, and Mike gave that to me. He's very kind of Mike, and it was just great to see him again. But you'll see that coming up on the channel, open access. Mike also gave me this enormous book, which is Michael Moorcock, Into the Media Web, selected short non-fiction 1956 to 2006, and I used to have a copy of this, and I must have sold it when I needed money. And it was published by, is it Savoy? Yes, published by Savoy. You'll hear me and Mike talk about it in the interview. And it weighs a ton. And this came out about, say, 2007. And it's got great design, as you see. It looks like the Tube map in London. And it's all sorts of non-fiction from different sources. And Mike said to me, have you got one? And I said, well, I don't think I've got one now. And he said, well, I'll give you one. And this goes now for about 200, 250 quid. It's really uncommon. Absolutely weighs a ton. As you see up here, it's got the 8 radiating arms of chaos up there. And I'll just take the jacket off to show you the book, because it's a beautiful book. So if you ever see one sitting around at 20, 30 quid, pick it up, because it's really collectible. There you go. Silver gilt on white boards. And the whole tube design there. Very, very nice. And that's obviously like an old station picture. Great. And this is a fantastic book. And Mike's such a pro, you know. He signs there on the full title page. It's got illustrations throughout. You can't really see them very well. They're mostly small. But it's hundreds and hundreds of pages. 650 pages. And I have read it all, but I want to read it again. So I love rereading non-fiction. And he wrote in here a little message to Steve, with all good wishes in friendship, Paris, 12th September 2024, yours, Mike. And he put that on there. And lovely. And the very first time I met Mike was at the WorldCom. The first time I did an event with him, we got talking properly, was in 87, 88, I think. And, you know, I've got books he signed for me then. He'd do an inscription and a drawing on the end papers or whatever. But he'd always sign, just flat sign on the title page, because he's a total pro and understands book collecting and what have you. So, yeah, really pleased with that. Weighs a ton. So, yet another example of the wonderful generosity of spirit which Mike is known for. And then I went to Shakespeare and Company. And if you saw the Paris video from last year, you remember me saying, no, it's not going to happen. I'm not going in. And they won't let you film in there. You have to queue to go in. And my rationale last time was that I'm not queuing to go in a bookshop. You know, I was booking the book. It's never going to happen. But I was with my friend Mark, and I thought we'll go in. We had a coffee outside and waited until the queue went down. And it's like a tripartite thing. You have the Shakespeare and Company, the new books, and it's books in English. It's obviously British books, some American, but mostly British books. Then there's the second-hand, or should I say, antiquarian bit, which is not connected physically to the other. You can't go into that bit, the main body of the shop and buy. So you can just wander in there. And that's quite small. I went in there last year, and that's good. And then there's the cafe. And outside the cafe, you can sit inside, it's quite small, you can sit outside, and they've got these really rickety benches and tables. You've got a great view of Notre Dame. They're really rickety, and it has to be said the coffee and cakes are really overpriced, and they're not that great, you know. And you will see me doing, probably when I do a Paris vlog, I might do 2 parts. One might just be about bookshops. I haven't decided yet because I've got a wealth of material. I've just got to try and shape it. And I went into a rant outside about how crap Shakespeare and Company is. It's the most overrated bookshop in the world. It's nothing special. It's actually very small. It's not the original Shakespeare and Company run by Sylvia Beach, of course, where Ulysses was published in 1922. It's not that at all. The guy who started it in 47, not 47, it started in the 60s. The original shut down in 47. He just bought a few bits of stock and things from Sylvia Beach, apparently. This is what Moorcock and other people have told me. And it's just nothing special. It really isn't. And that's really why they won't let you film in there. You've got to queue up, you know, as if it's this legend. And it's just really, really nothing special. There's a much better independent bookshop in Bath, Topping and Co. It's nothing special. However, the second-hand bit, the antiquarian bit, there's a second-hand bit in the main body of the new books bookshop, but there's the antiquarian bit, and that is really good. It's small, there's lots of good stuff, and the prices are excellent, it has to be said. Really, really good. And I went in there last year, and I talked to the chap in there who was English. It's the same guy. We got talking again, and me and my friend Mark had a good look around, and I could see there were bits of SF dotted around. And I said, oh, you've got quite a bit of science fiction. He said, yeah, I've just bought a collection from, and I said, John Baxter. And he said, yeah, how did you know? And I said, well, I know John Baxter lives in Paris. He's of the age where he might be moving things on. And John Baxter, of course, wrote a biography of Stanley Kubrick. He wrote a biography of J.G. Ballard, which people really didn't like. One thing that Mike and I talked about during the interview was how unhappy Mike was, and other people were as well, with the Ballard biography that Baxter did. I remember this at the time. I thought it was quite good, but I think people were unhappy with things they'd said, which they said, you know, redact that, or it wasn't quite that way, and it didn't happen. So, as you can hear, I still got the frog in my throat, if you pardon the expression. And I chat with the guy. It's really nice, and he actually went to the university in England where I used to run the bookshop. So he was sort of a student when I was a bookshop manager at this university, and he may well have been one of my customers. He told me he'd been a math student, and he's a really nice chap, actually. So I had a look through and I spotted this. This is Clara Reeve by Leonie Hargrave, and that, of course, is Thomas M. Dish. And this is the Knopf hardcover. It's got a little bit of wear there and a little bit of wear there. Normally, every copy I've seen of this, and I've only seen 2 or 3, has been in an absolute state. Always a ripped dust jacket. And there was one on sale on ABE Books. It might still be there, at a bookseller called Test Centre Books, who normally have poetry. And they obviously bought a Dish collection, lots of poetry. And I bought 1 or 2 things from them. And there's one on there with a very ripped jacket, especially at the head of the spine. And it's signed, and I think it belonged to M. John Harrison. This is John Baxter's copy, and I love this artwork. This is a Gothic novel, and it's got deckled edge there, and browned quarter cloth gilt, quite nice. And this was €40. It's normally about 30 quid unsigned. And that's a really good price, but I got a discount on this and the other book I bought, as I'll tell you about. And inside, it's got written here in pencil, Pseud meaning pseudonym, Thomas M. Dish and Charles Naylor. Now, Charles Naylor was Thomas M. Dish's partner, of course, and they wrote Neighbouring Lives together. I wasn't aware, at least I don't think I was aware, that Charles had a part in this, and I'm not certain if that's true, but there we go. And it's signed and dedicated in there. It says something con, and this looks like an 8 or something. It says, for John Baxter, Happy Easter, Leonie Hargrave, aka Thomas Dish. So there you go. So it's a nice associational copy. And John Baxter, of course, wrote a wonderful book about book collecting called A Pound of Paper, which I reviewed on the channel a while ago. You can pick it up. It's really, really good. and he's written about 6 books about Paris. He's lived there for ages, and they're good books, actually. So I'm not as anti him as some of the people in the SF community who are not very happy about the Ballard thing. And signed, and really, really nice. So that was good. The other thing I bought, this is a book I've wanted this for at least 30 years, probably longer. And it's Jonathan Cape from 1968. You see copies around. They're always in a mess. It's become very expensive. It's about £100 now for an excellent, and a very good to excellent copy, sometimes cheaper. I've never seen one as good as this. And this is Colonel Sen by Robert Markham. Now, Robert Markham, of course, is Kingsley Amis. Doesn't tell you that on this. And as you see, it's got this wonderful surrealist cover. There's a little bit of wear at the head of the spine and the heel. There's the cape colophon there. I'm just going to take the jacket off to show you the cover design. It is price clipped, but I'm not really that bothered about price clipping. I can cope with price clips. So just show you this here. I think you'll agree that's quite a jacket. It's very darly. And Colonel Sen, Robert Markham, is a James Bond novel. Now, of course, these days, everybody and his brother is writing James Bond novels, and they have done for ages. But basically, Kingsley Amis wrote this, and Cape, of course, were Ian Fleming's publisher. When Fleming died, a couple of years before this, I think it was 66, he was writing The Man with the Golden Gun, and he never finished it. So Amis took what was there, stitched it together and neatened it up, and that was it. So this is a direct sequel to The Man with the Golden Gun. And the thing about this is that he imitates Fleming's style incredibly well, so well. And I read it for the first time when I first read all the James Bond books. It was actually in the official livery of the Panther ones, the ones which have white or black covers with different girls in glamorous dresses with a big gun, big golden gun. It's like, this obvious phallic symbol in the Macroverse. And fundamentally, this was one of them. And nobody knew that Robert Markham was Kingsley Amis then. It was quite closely kept secret. And most Bond fans didn't know about this. And it was reissued about 7-8 years ago, and I think it now says Kingsley Amis on, which isn't as much fun. But it's a direct sequel, so it's very faithful and very good. When I read it, the only way I could tell it wasn't by Fleming was in a sex scene where Robert Markham, Kingsley Amis, briefly in prose mentions or describes the lady. And fundamentally, Fleming would never do that. Too much of a gentleman, despite the sex, the sadism, and what have you. But I've always wanted one because I love Cape. It's a nice little octavo, and it's got this wonderful surrealist cover. And that was €55. So altogether, that should have been €95. It's got somebody's book plate in it. Somebody called Roger Hughes. So I've got to look that up. So that was €95, and I had a good chat with the chap there, and he knocked it down to €76 for me, which is about 60 quid, 62, 63 quid, which was really good for those two books. And he was great, and I felt bad then about having a rant about how bad the new books part of Shakespeare and Company is. But you've got to be honest about it. It is just a tourist trap. I really don't think much of it at all. But then again, my perspective is professional and I'm hard to impress, so it is what it is. So that's a little mini book haul from Paris. Special thanks to people who have helped fund my trip. James Goddard, Simon Proctor, both incredibly generous, and Chris Skillings, who has been above and beyond the call of duty, and everybody else who's chipped in with super thanks and what have you. And all of you who've joined. It does make running the channel more secure for me now, because it has been really hard with my health and stuff. It's great to be back in the UK. I had an amazing time. I'm very footsore and tired, but I'm going to really enjoy going through the footage and getting some videos up over the next week. And I do hope you watch all those. And I'm going to put some music ones up, some gigs I went to, some jazz ones, and which will be non-monetized because they're copyrighted material, of course. And there's a band called the Big Tusk, and they're these four young Parisian guys, and they do this kind of jazz fusion ambient electronic rock. It's really hard to describe, but I'm going to put a video of their one of their gigs up, which is about half an hour long. Starts with a very slow drone thing, but do watch it. And they're really, really fantastic venue called Duc de Lombard's at Rue de Lombard, off Boulevard Sebastopol in central Paris. So just great. So do watch that as well. I hope you watch that. And if you've got a big screen smart TV, watch on that, because it'll look and sound amazing as far as I can tell from the snippets of footage I've looked at. See you soon in the club room, probably sort of middle of next week. Thanks, guys. Bye for now.